everybody, Jeff Antoniuk here. Welcome to Guided Listening. So we're going to be talking about the very, very famous jazz standard, Stella by Starlight, and this very particular recording off an album called 58 Miles. It was also called Jazz Tracks, and these songs weren't really put together as a particular album, but they were sort of assembled. And this particular track of Stella by Starlight, that's what I want to talk about. There's so much going on here. The band, I believe this is the first time that Bill Evans recorded with Miles Davis. This is before the Kind of Blue album, so this is sort of a big deal. Red Garland had departed. We have Bill Evans on piano. I believe it's Paul Chambers on bass, and it's Jimmy Cobb on drums. So that's the rhythm section. We have Miles, Coltrane. Cannonball isn't on this particular track. So that's what we're going to listen to, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think this track is so important for your development as a player. Okay, and before we get into it, So you hear me talk about Jazzwire all the time, and I've noticed people are sort of referring to these videos as like Jazzwire. And yes, I talk about Jazzwire, and I do run jazzwire.net. These videos have nothing to do with Jazzwire. This is not Jazzwire, just to let folks know, and I can see how that could be confusing. I'm a guy on YouTube and Facebook right now talking about jazz. So this is guided listening. If you haven't checked out the Digging Deeper Jazz series, 200 videos that are on very specific, very small topics every week for 200 weeks. I did that. So one might be about a particular Brazilian rhythm. The next might be about how to use the altered scale. Next might be about triad pairs. So just 200 different topics. Jazzwire is an entirely other thing. That's the subscription platform that I have, and I would love for you to check it out. So yeah, what I'm doing right here, this is not Jazzwire at all. And check out the free trial. And that will take the free trial and you'll get a sense. That's the tricky job I have, is talking about Jazzwire is difficult because it's behind the paywall, right? It's an amazing platform and people pay a subscription to be there. Hundreds of folks from all over the world. It's unlike anything else out there, and that's difficult. If I were selling PDFs for $5, that's like 1,000 people out there. You get what that means. I know what a PDF is. I know what $5 is. I know how to go to PayPal, right? So take the free trial and get a sense of what we're doing that is so different than everybody else. And really, it's about the community. And that's how humans work in a community. So I have assembled this community that works so well together. We'd love you to be a part of it. Okay, so let's dig into this. So there is so much to be learned from this recording, but I remember the first time I heard it, I was struck. It's only 3 choruses long, I want to say, this recording of Stella by Starlight. And Miles plays the melody, and it feels like a solo just because he's playing, as Miles does, like so personally and so intimately. And it's like, we don't need a solo. Like the way he played the melody, man, like it could end right there. A solo would have been a downer after the way Miles played the melody. So now Coltrane comes in and it starts swinging. And like a couple measures, it's like, wait a minute, he's playing the melody again. And he plays the melody the whole way through. His solo is him playing the melody a second time. It's really weird when you think about it, because we play the melody, then we play some solos, right? He plays the melody again. And it's embellished a bit. But for Coltrane, he could have gone to town. And this was sort of the beginning of the Sheets of Sound era. He could have gone, just nuts. And he's playing the melody. So here's why I love this for you and for me and for all my students, is I want you to play along with Coltrane and feel like what it's like to be in his skin. Now, if you're a tenor player like me, we could transcribe a Coltrane solo, or we could buy a transcription. But now it's the notes. We're haggling with notes and rhythms. It could be months before I can play this thing up to tempo to play with Coltrane. I want you to play with Coltrane today. So if you can play half notes and quarter notes, if you know the melody of Stella by Starlight, you can play along with Coltrane and notice when and how he embellishes. It's really incredible. Notice that tone and notice the brightness, but the thickness and the buzz, but the roundness, like all these contradictory terms that I don't know what any of them mean anyway. So talking about sound is ridiculous. Just to play a note with him and to realize like, oh my God, like whatever it is. And here's the thing, maybe Coltrane isn't your favorite sound. Shame on you, but that's okay, right? You can like Hank Mobley or Stan Getz or whoever. I'm down. It's good. But man, we have to agree that the core and the the intensity, whatever you want to call it, of Coltrane sound is something we should know how to do even if we choose to not, right? So I love this recording because we don't have to get mired down in all the Coltrane notes or all the Miles notes. They're playing this melody. So there's so much to learn about the restraint they're playing with, about how to embellish a melody, about how close to stay to the melody and how much to add. I think their decisions here are genius. And this ability to play along with Coltrane because it's so accessible, right? And it's not that we should dumb things down and just look for the simplest thing. That ain't it. But to be able to do this today, you should learn his solo on Locomotion or on Love Supreme or whatever. But it's going to take you months and months and months and months to get to the point where you can even think about playing with him, right? Because you're going to be haggling with the solo. You get what I'm saying. I want all of you to do this. I can't say it in a strong enough way. It's going to be you're going to learn so many lessons. I can't even tell you what they are right now because they're going to be personal. And this isn't really teaching. That's the other thing about this not being Jazzwire. I'm talking to my camera here. I don't know who you are. I don't know how you play. I don't know how many years experience you have. I don't know if you're a pro or not. So how can I actually give you a lesson? The answer is I can't. I cannot. Inside Jazzwire, I can. So that's the difference. So let's listen to this thing, and we're going to hear plenty from Bill Evans and Jimmy Cobb and Paul Chambers to talk about as well. Stella by Starlight, Miles 58. Bowed bass, which is lovely. Bill Evans chords. So listen to that feel. Listen to Jimmy Cobb on the drums and Paul Chambers. So we're going to call that a 2 feel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So he's playing twice a measure, which means half notes. He's playing on beats 1 and 3. That's simple. Little embellishments. And listen to the drums. Well, it's brushes on the snare, right? But do you hear that pulse? There's a really, really strong pulse. Miles got a little loud there, right? Miles is getting a little loud. But he was so soft, but now he's loud again? Soft, loud? What the heck's he doing? Why isn't he playing evenly? Ba, 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 ba. So the way he's playing so vocally, the way he's accenting and ghosting notes, he's not just playing flat out, be it loud or soft or whatever. All that nuance in his playing. That's a huge lesson. For you to play this along with Miles, you're going to notice he's doing stuff you're not doing. Check it out here. Next chorus. So now it's walking bass. Jimmy Cobb is swinging. And that rim shot on beat 4. Woo! Cross stick, technically. And he's playing the melody. That was probably the most complicated thing he plays. So he does some great enclosures. Some neat little embellishments that add to the melody. That tone, jeez. And again, listen to the bass and the drums. no fills to speak of from Jimmy Cobb. It is just so connected and so swinging. Quarter notes. Quarter notes with these little skips in them on occasion, not a lot. And that was it. Coltrane solo playing the melody for a chorus. This is top of the third chorus. And what happened with bass and drums? Back to this 2 feel. Listen to Paul Chambers. So he's improvising a little bit more. It's still a 2 feel, but he's definitely ornamenting more. Bill Evans, I'm talking right over him, is paraphrasing the melody. It sounds like a solo, but he's playing the melody in his Bill Evans broken up way, but very strong rhythmically. And now here's the middle of the form. Miles comes in. Listen to his relative volumes. How loud that was and how he comes down. Now it has to do with the range and everything, but he's making those choices. He's not at the whim of his trumpet. He's making the trumpet do what he wants. And how this is coming down. Some chords on the bass, some double stops. And how Miles almost doesn't end the melody. It sort of goes into this chordal ending, and we do land on the tonic finally. But how Miles, in a way, leaves his part a little unfinished is what it sounds like to me. So that whole arrangement was 3 choruses, which, by the way, is a lesson in itself, that at a tempo like this, do we want, this was 5 minutes long, do we want this to be 15 minutes long? In all honesty, yeah, I do, because it's Miles and Trane. I could listen to this forever, especially if I'm in the room. But yeah, probably not, right? So for a recording, this makes a lot of sense. When it's live, it can take more time, for sure. 3 choruses. We had Miles play the melody in, then we had Trane solo, which was the melody. Then we had half a chorus of Bill Evans, which was the melody. And then from the bridge out, Miles played the melody. This was 3 choruses of melody. So I find it fascinating. I would love to know if they discussed that. If Miles said, Trane, you take the middle chorus, and he's just like, you take it. Well, if someone says that to me, I'm soloing. It wouldn't occur to me to play the melody a second time, especially this. You know, it's such an interesting decision. So I wonder if Miles or the producer or somebody said that. Hey, Bill, when you solo, paraphrase the melody. When we hear it now, it's so obvious and so perfect, and anything else would be worse. But yeah, it's easy to say that when we see genius at work, and it's so obvious. Of course, Bach wrote that. Anything else would suck. Sure, he wrote that. Yeah, that doesn't help when we're staring at the blank page, right? So there's so much great stuff here. The restraint that Jimmy Cobb is playing with, but how the rhythmically, the rhythmic impulse. And so when you listen to that first chorus and he's on the brushes, it's not just a bunch of hissing around, on the snare drum. There's that pulse in there. There's a really strong pulse in the brushes, and that's what great drummers work on with their brushes, is to have the sound of the brushes, that legato hissing sound, but there has to be the rhythm. There has to be. Usually there is the rhythm. So of course, we can play brushes in a way where we're just sort of creating background sound or noise. Sure, that's legit, but that's not typically how it goes. Paul Chambers, how he played that really locked in 2-beat for Miles' first chorus, how he swung like, oh my God, that second chorus behind Coltrane. And then the 2-beat behind Bill Evans and how he was really interacting inside that 2-beat. So 2 different approaches to the 2-beat. So I could just go on and on about every note that every one of these guys played. And it was fun. I did a little post earlier in the week on Facebook like, hey, do you guys know this recording? I mean, of course people will know this, but so many people came out of the woodwork and knew this album and really valued this album. And this is, so, as I said, sort of a funny off the beaten path set of recordings because it wasn't, one of the classic recordings that was done meant for this session. It was a collection of sort of half studio things that didn't have a home and half live at the Plaza at New York or something. So yeah, it was, cobbled together album. But there's a lot here. So again, whenever someone's talking to me about sound on their instrument, and especially on the saxophone, and if they're wanting something more, it's the sound isn't fully formed. It's not sounding like a pro. Lots of people come to me like that. I have these discussions inside Jazzwire all the time. So I'm having this with you, but I don't know who you are. Inside Jazzwire, I'm literally talking to someone who I know, and I've heard them play 50, 100 times, and them doing their posts inside the community. It's not that we've done 50 or 100 private lessons. We don't do private lessons in Jazzwire. Do the free trial. You'll see what I mean. And so what do we do? And yes, I do this for a living. I talk about how to get better at jazz and the saxophone. But sometimes you're playing a great mouthpiece. Yeah, the reeds, those should work well. And this is all great. Yeah, you're playing a great horn and your lip and your embouchure and your throat. Everything's there, and yet it's not there. What do we do? Well, what we do is we go to the sound. Play along with this recording. So now, you may be a trombone player and you're thinking about a Carl Fontana recording that would fit the bill, where he's not going nuts as Carl Fontana can, and he's just playing something simply, and you play along. Even if it's 6 measures, 8 measures, it's so important. So I want this to be a game changer for a lot of folks out there, and for us to have the further conversation. That's what we do inside Jazzwire. So I hope you'll take the free trial, and I hope you jump into playing along with Coltrane here. If you're a guitar player, piano player, play along with Coltrane. You're going to learn a lot. That was fun. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next week.